But I will say this: ESPN's Dan Graziano wrote a thing today. He said, "Don't rule out the possibility of the 49ers, as tremendous as they already look, adding a player if they think it can make a difference." The Niners have the biggest goals for this season, and they were aggressive last year with Christian McCaffrey when he became available. Remember, the Rams added Von Miller at the deadline a couple of years ago. It's an opportunity for an impact guy like that comes along at the right cost. Don't sleep on the idea of the rich getting richer in San Francisco. So I did a whole video on this week, and I went through with a fine tooth comb every part of the Niners and every part of like all the players that were rumored to be on the trade block. And what I've come to is that there's a few guys I'd be interested in as minor pieces, like Jordan Willis. I would like to pluck him off the Raiders practice squad and add him because I think that would help. Another edge rusher, but a cheap one, not an expensive one. Zach Ertz, I think Zach Ertz could really be a nice extra piece, and I could see him being a very big impact for a very cheap price, like Rondale Moore or a speedy guy like McCole Hardman, a field stretching vertical threat, DJ Reed potentially as a cheaper corner. But like this idea that, I heard Croc talking about Horn, JC Horn, and a lot of people are really on the Patrick Surtain tip, and I get it because those guys are badass. I don't see those guys going anywhere. I just don't. And I'll say the guy that I'm totally pushing hard for, and I think is the perfect piece for the Niners to add, is Jeremy Chinn of the Panthers, because the trade deadline comes up 3 full months before the Super Bowl, right? You're going to have all of November, all of December, and all of January before you even get to the Super Bowl. So you're going to have to make a move that carries you through, and you're not necessarily going to know what your need is. And I just think that Chinn, first of all, Wilkes knows him and likes him. He's a phenomenal nickelback. He's physical. He's big. He can help you. He could give you an extra hitter, an extra dominant athlete. He could play linebacker. He could give you a third safety, and you could go to some 3 safety looks and diversify your look on the back end. And I think he could be the nickelback that they really need. I'm not so convinced that Oliver is special. I think Oliver's a nice guy and good, but not special. And that would be the guy. If I could, and somebody said that people were suggesting maybe like a 4th and a 6th or something. I'm like, no way. If you're going to get Jeremy Chinn, I think you're going to have to give a 2nd-round pick. But I don't think you're going to have to trade your number 1. And that's the guy that I would target, guys. I really think that he's the final piece to the puzzle. I think he could be a blitzer, a nickel, a safety, a backer, a hitter, an athlete. I love Jeremy Chinn and the possibility of adding him. That's the guy that I would target to try to get over the top.
So I'm going to respond to all of this, but just to clarify, do you look at Chinn as kind of like a dime linebacker? So on 3rd downs, maybe you take like Greenlaw off the field and Chinn becomes like a dime linebacker safety, similar to how the Cowboys use Jaron Kearse,
I just
something
think
like that.
Yeah, I mean, I just love the difference-making athlete that he is and playmaker. He was great with the Salukis at Southern Illinois. He's got a 41-inch vertical. He's a 4.45 40 guy. He can play he's got really good corner movement at 221 pounds. To me, Vish, he's the one. I want him for a lot of reasons. I think he helps you in a bunch of areas, but then also I'm looking at the Eagles as the primary competition. The Eagles lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Then they lost Avonte Maddox. They're desperate for a nickel. This keeps Chinn from winding up in Philly. And then I think if you wind up against Philly, this guy can take away Goddard. If you wind up against Kansas City in the Super Bowl, I think this is the ideal guy to put on Kelsey. I just like Chinn on a lot of fronts, and I'd be willing to pay whatever it took to get him. And I don't think it would cost you a 1st-round pick. I think you could probably get him for maybe a 2 and a 3 and a 4, or a 2 and a 3 and a 5, or something like that. And I think Wilkes knows him and knows how to utilize him.
Yeah, so I'm going to start, and I'm going to answer all of this in 3 parts. I'm going to first start with Ron Holder's question, just so that we can get it off the board. I think the 49ers should try and add a running back. And it's not because, again, I think pretty highly of Jordan Mason, actually. My opinion continues to grow of him. Every time we see him on the field, he runs the football very well. But they seem to have a hesitation to put him on the field, except for situations where it's an obvious run. And I think there's still question marks on whether he could hold up if he had to become the primary back in a situation where, hey, Mitchell's hurt, Christian McCaffrey got banged up for a game. Can he hold up doing their entire offense in pass protection and as a pass catcher? Not in terms of his ability to catch the ball and run after the catch. I think that's fine. But his ability to, see leverage and see coverage, because the Niners run so many choice routes for their back, and do that correctly on the same wavelength as Purdy. So I wouldn't mind them adding another running back, especially because I don't know that they're getting a lot from the Ty Davis price. Well, and Mitchell was supposed to be an ideal backup. We all want McCaffrey's attempts and usage to go down, just because attrition feels like the only thing that could hold him back. And so I wouldn't mind having another veteran back that they feel like they could trust in situations that could, as awesome as McCaffrey is, bring down his workload.
Who are you thinking of, though? Is there a particular guy you're thinking of? Because I was thinking of Jonathan Taylor, and that was exciting to me. I just can't think of a back right now that I would like more than their backup backs that they have.
I mean, ideally, I'm trying to think of like a Jet McKinnon kind of guy, the role he serves. For Kansas City, where he's receiver, he pass blocks very well. He can run it in a pinch when they needed to, but just a guy that to them, they can trust having Jerick McKinnon on the field at any point, at any down. I wouldn't mind them having another veteran player like that behind McCaffrey just to lower his usage. But either way, I do need to do a little bit more research. That's a good question on who that player would be. I just described the style of player, but I don't know that, like you said, that guy's available. The second part of it is the Graziano tweet that you described, and Albert Breer talked about it earlier this week, not specific to the 49ers, but specific to the NFL in general. Teams are going to try to load up on assets because of the quarterbacks upcoming in this draft. So they're going to be sellers at the trade deadline if they feel like there's an opportunity to get Caleb Williams, to get Drake May, to get Michael Penix. And that adds to an opportunity for a team like the 49ers that doesn't need a quarterback next year in the draft. So they can be a little bit more aggressive with picks because there might be better guys available. And I agree with you. To me, Pat Surtain is out of the question. They can't afford to pay Pat Surtain when the time comes. And Pat Surtain is going to cost multiple first-round picks. He's arguably the best corner in football, and he's 23 years old. That's not a realistic trade for a team that's where the 49ers are. I do like the idea of trading for a guy like Jeremy Chinn or something like that, but I think there's going to be a few more names that float up being available. They don't need a safety, but hey, wouldn't Justin Simmons look good in a 49ers uniform? There's going to be a few guys that I think will become a part of this conversation. Ideally, I'm looking for players like Simmons. He's just the number one name I can describe right now. Not even a great fit for the Niners exactly. They don't need a safety, but just a veteran guy who's had multiple years of success, has a near expiring contract, and would 100% be a big-time contributor. Randall brings it up in the comments. Danielle Hunter, that's a great name. A player like that, to me, would make sense for the 49ers at this point. Ideally, a veteran, a one-year rental type of guy. You get a comp pick in return, so you're not giving that much. It's just a salary dump earlier in the year for a team that's looking to move on, a team that understands they're bad, a team that's looking to get a new quarterback and reshift the identity of the organization. Trading a veteran player, whether it's like an Emmanuel Sanders sort, Danielle Hunter, that kind of player. I think the Niners should be in the market for that. And I don't know that it really matters position. I think corner is the ideal position to see that. It's just hard to get movement with those kinds of players at corners because you don't have that many good 28-year-old, 29-year-old corners in the NFL. Usually by that point, they've lost a step and they're not the same player. And so I don't know that it necessarily matters at position, but I would love to see the 49ers acquire a veteran player of that.